Many years ago, in the beautiful village of Umakbolo, there lived a young lady named Ibo, whose beauty caused confusion everywhere she went because even goats paused their chewing to stare at her when she walked by. She was tall, fair, soft-spoken, and had a smile so bright that pregnant women believed looking at her face could make their unborn child beautiful. People used to say that God took an extra day to design her face, and Mama Josephine, her mother, agreed loudly every single morning as if she was being paid for it. Ego was the pride of Umakbulu village, and Mama Josephine treated her like a golden trophy. Every time Ego stepped out of the house, her mother would stand proudly at the front door shouting, "Look well, everybody, for this is the moon that brightens the night. She's not free of charge. Suitors must come correctly and with full pockets." Papa Uzo, her father, always rolled his eyes quietly because he was tired of their drama. And he never failed to remind them that women are like plantain. If kept for too long, they will turn black and soft. But Mama Josephine always replied, "A valuable woman does not rush. If gold waits underground for years, my daughter can wait too. After all, men are everywhere like sand." However, in spite of her beauty, Ego Oyibo had a problem. She loved eating too much. Not ordinary eating, but ferocious eating. If Ego Oyibo saw food, she instantly forgot how to talk. She acted like someone collecting revenge from the world. If there was a festival, she attended even if she was not invited. If there was a wedding, she helped the caterers so she could stand near the food. If there was a burial, she consoled the family strongly just so they could serve her extra food. Now, in their village, there was a tradition guiding marriage. When a suitor came to show serious interest in a girl, he was mandated to come with a small envelope as an introduction fee, which was a sign of commitment before the official bride price negotiation. This money was given to the girl. Sometimes it was 50,000 naira, sometimes 100,000 naira, sometimes less, and sometimes even more, depending on the man's pocket and confidence level. The money was normally meant for planning future ceremonies. Unfortunately, in Ego's situation, the money never reached any planning stage because the moment an envelope entered her hand, her stomach became the precedent and gave instructions immediately. One of such suitors that came was Ikenna, a handsome palm wine tapper from the next village. With arms strong enough to carry 2 full palm wine kegs at once, he came with his uncles, carrying the introduction envelope boldly as if he was holding a treasure. And Mama Josephine danced around the compound waving a white handkerchief, shouting, "Finally, my daughter is going to marry a strong man who can feed a family." The women danced. The men smiled and children gathered to watch. Meanwhile, Ego stood at the door pretending to be shy, while her heart was already calculating how many plates of nkwobi and catfish the envelope would buy. Ikenna handed her the money with romantic pride and said, "Ego, this is the beginning of our journey." Ego looked at the envelope the way a lion looks at fresh meat. She smiled gently and said, "Thank you. I feel destiny already moving inside me." After they left, Mama Josephine wanted to start discussion about the wedding like a committee, but Ego disappeared into her room, locked the door, and 20 minutes later, she came out dressed in a beautiful outfit and slippers. Mama Josephine shouted, "Where are you going to dress like someone escaping?" Ego answered, "I am going to upgrade my body. My future must be nourished." Papa Uzo looked up slowly and said, "Please, Ego, remember to bring back change." Ego smiled sweetly and replied, "Daddy, destiny does not bring change, it consumes." Before anyone could talk again, she ran out. That evening, the whole village started smelling of goat's meat pepper soup, fried meats, isiewu, jollof rice, and chilled malt drink. People were dancing in the bar as if a festival was happening. Even strangers joined. Children carried takeaway bowls home. Musicians played till midnight, and people were shouting, "Ego Oyibo don land oh! Another bride prize has entered her stomach." By morning, the envelope was empty. Completely empty. Not even 1 naira coin remained. When Ikenna called to ask when they would be meeting for family introduction, Ego picked the call, sighed deeply like someone tired of life, and said, "I need time to think about our future. Let us pause and digest destiny first." Then she blocked his number. By the 5th suitor, the village already prepared snacks and drinks whenever Ego received an envelope, because they knew a party was coming. People started taking chairs to the bar in advance. Musicians saved her number. Even the dogs in the village became excited whenever they saw her coming, because experience had taught them it meant leftover bones were coming. And that was how her name changed from Ego Oyibo to Ego the bride prize eater. One evening, Aunty Nwake Ego, the gossip broadcaster, sat outside her compound like a news anchor and announced loudly to everyone passing, "Breaking news! Suitor number 6 has fallen. I repeat, number 6 has fallen. His money has melted in Ego's stomach like sugar in hot water." People laughed so much that their stomachs hurt. But Papa Uzo didn't find it funny. He sat under the mango tree, rubbing his forehead every evening and muttering, "If this girl eats one more marriage, I may not survive it." But Mama Josephine always replied confidently, "Leave her alone. She's waiting for the right man. She cannot marry anyhow person. Royalty takes time." And Ego would raise her chin proudly and say, "A queen must eat well while waiting for the king. Good things take time." But everyone knew time was running, because by the time Ego turned 32, the list of her eating suitors was longer than the list of successful marriages in the village. Well, Ego still didn't care at this point, even though her name was now used to tell children folk tales and warn young girls about greed. Mothers would point at her compound and say to their daughters, "My child, do not behave like Ego Oyibo. If you eat tomorrow's blessings today, you will swallow regret later." Even the little children playing 10-10 sang mock songs with her name. "Ego ate the money. Ego ate the money." But Ego always walked proudly with her shoulders raised high like someone wearing an invisible crown. She never allowed anyone to see her insecurity, even though deep in her heart, she sometimes wondered if maybe she was waiting too long, and if maybe true love had passed her by while she was too busy eating life. Papa Uzo watched her quietly every evening, and one night he said, "Ego, the beauty of a woman is not only in the face, but in wisdom and humility. Your stomach must not be stronger than your brain." Mama Josephine hissed like hot steam escaping from a kettle. "Leave her now. Men are the ones delaying, not her stomach. Real men are scarce like gold." Papa Uzo shook his head and continued eating his garri in silence, while Ego stared at her plate with a strange confusion in her chest. The next morning, a rumor began to spread about Obinna Nna, a wealthy son of Umuwoke village and a successful businessman in the city who had returned home. People said he owned a chain of supermarkets in Lagos, that he drove a shiny black Jeep, and that he built a big house with tiles so smooth you could see your future inside them. The moment he arrived, women suddenly started fetching extra water every hour, adjusting their wrappers and sweeping their compounds unnecessarily, hoping he would notice someone. When Ego heard his name, her heart beat twice. Years ago, when they were teenagers, Obinna once confessed that he liked her, but she ignored him because she believed a bigger destiny was coming. Now, he returned as a handsome grown man with confidence written all over him. The first time Obinna saw Ego this time around was at the village market. She was haggling with a tomato seller and shouting, "These tomatoes are expensive like American visa. Do you want to kill somebody?" Obinna laughed from behind and said, "Some things never change." Ego turned sharply and her eyes widened because Obinna looked like a movie actor. He was tall with broad shoulders, a perfectly trimmed beard, and a gentle smile that could melt frozen water. She swallowed hard and replied, "Obinna, is it really you?" He nodded, still smiling. "Yes, I came home to rest and see family and maybe reconnect with important people." For no reason, Ego felt her heart dancing inside her chest, so she pretended to adjust her hair, even though the wind had blown nothing. 3 days later, Obinna walked confidently into Ego's compound with his uncle, a bag of rice, bottles of wine, a carton of noodles, and a thick brown envelope in his hand. Mama Josephine saw them from the window and screamed in excitement like someone who had been waiting for 30 years for good news. She rushed outside shouting, "Nna, welcome, welcome, please sit. Ego, come out immediately." Ego appeared slowly, acting shy, even though her stomach was already celebrating the envelope like a birthday cake. Obinna spoke softly and sincerely. "Ego, I came because I still believe in you. I know your worth beyond what people say. I want to know you again and build something real with you." Even Papa Uzo smiled and nodded with approval. He handed the envelope to her respectfully. "This is for introduction. If you want us to walk this journey together, I will come back with my elders." Ego touched the envelope as if it contained gold. Mama Josephine shouted, "God has done it, oh, everybody must hear. Wedding bells are ringing." The neighbors gathered immediately like ants who smelled sugar. People clapped, children danced, and drummers appeared mysteriously from nowhere, as if they were permanently on standby for village emergencies. Amid the noise, Ego whispered to Obinna, "I will take good care of this and pray for protection." Obinna nodded and smiled. "I believe in you, Ego." However, that evening, Ego changed her clothes 3 times before going out. She finally wore a glittering blue gown that sparkled like the moonlight. She carried the envelope under her arm like a newborn baby, and the moment the bar owner saw her approaching, he shouted, "Everybody, prepare yourselves! Ego has arrived with destiny again." People screamed. Tables and chairs appeared. Musicians tuned their music and the feast began. Ego bought everything sold in the bar: catfish pepper soup, roasted chicken, nkwobi, fried yam, beans, rice, akara, palm wine, malt, mineral, even chewing gum. The entire village ate and danced with the spirit of festival. In the middle of the celebration, Aunty Nwakego climbed a plastic chair and shouted, "Breaking news! Suitor number 13 has delivered money. Let us pray he survives." Everyone roared with laughter. Ego shouted above the music, "My destiny is sweet. Marriage is not a race. Let us eat and celebrate until joy enters the bone." Her stomach celebrated too, but something inside her chest whispered, "Do not lose this one." Well, nobody heard that voice, especially Ego, who was carried away. The next morning, the envelope was empty again. Not 1 naira remained. Even the receipt of the feast was longer than a church offering list on Christmas. Obinna called early and said, "Ego, can we meet to discuss plans? I want us to start preparing for family introduction." But Ego, who was still sitting on her bed, exhausted and heavy with food regrets, placed a hand on her stomach and replied, "I need time to think about us. Let me digest the possibilities. I'll call you later." Then she turned off her phone. Days after Ego stopped answering Obinna's calls, the village became restless with gossip spreading so fast that even birds in the sky seemed to carry the news. People stood at their compounds whispering with hands covering their mouths, pretending not to stare at Ego whenever she passed. Yet, watching her with curiosity and judgment, even children sang new versions of their song. Ego ate the money, now she's hiding from Obinna. One afternoon, Papa Uzo called Ego to sit beside him and he spoke with sadness. My daughter, pride is like smoke. It enters the eyes until you cry. Do not play with a good man's heart. If you lose Obinna, you may regret until your hair turns white. But Ego, who was sitting with crossed legs and twisting her necklace, confidently replied stubbornly, Daddy, a woman must think carefully before she chooses a husband. I am only giving myself time. I know what I am doing. Papa Uzo looked at her like a doctor examining a hopeless patient and said, I hope wisdom will not arrive when it is too late. Unfortunately, Ego did not listen. And then, one sunny Thursday afternoon, a sleek, shiny black car drove into the village, raising dust behind it like a movie scene entrance. People rushed outside immediately because in Umakbolu village, a new car was like breaking news. The car stopped in front of Papa Uzo's compound and a tall, handsome, muscular man stepped out wearing designer sunglasses and a gold wristwatch that sparkled like lightning. It was Odogu Chinedu, Ego's childhood friend who left the village many years ago to seek success overseas. As children, he and Ego were inseparable. They fetched water together, walked to school side by side, and even swore childish promise to marry each other someday. But when Ego grew older and more beautiful, she began ignoring him because she felt she deserved someone richer and more impressive. Now, he had returned successful, very successful. The villagers exclaimed loudly, Ha! Chinedu has come back with money. See his chest, see his car, see his shoes. Ego stepped out of her house slowly with a smile that stretched wider than the horizon, pretending to be surprised and shaking inside. Chinedu, look at you, you've changed. Chinedu smiled, and you, Ego, you look even more beautiful than ever. Mama Josephine ran out immediately and hugged Chinedu like a returning hero. Welcome home, my son, you are shining like Christmas star. Chinedu laughed, greeted everyone warmly, and then he spoke clearly. I came back not only to see my family, but also to settle down. I want a wife who knows value, who understands life, and who will manage what I have built with me. The crowd gasped in excitement, knowing what was coming next. Chinedu turned to Ego slowly, looked straight into her eyes and said, Ego, I still choose you. If you let me, I want to start something real with you. Ego instantly forgot herself. Her heart jumped like a goat escaping a rope, and she replied in a soft, romantic tone, Chinedu, I am ready to explore destiny with you. The villagers clapped in excitement. Chinedu then reached into his pockets and handed Ego a thick brown envelope, which looked bigger and heavier than any she had ever received before. Her eyes widened, her fingers trembled, and her stomach started celebrating future meals. Everyone shouted excitedly, but only Chinedu and two of his cousins knew the truth. Inside the envelope was fake money. Only papers carefully cut into the exact size of naira notes and sprayed with perfume to smell like fresh currency. Because Chinedu had heard everything about Ego's habits. He knew that she had eaten many men's bride price and broken hearts carelessly. He wanted to test her character before giving his real heart and real money. He wanted to know if she valued love or only food. He smiled and said, This is the first step. Use it well. If things go well, we'll continue. Ego grabbed the envelope tightly like someone holding a newborn baby. Thank you. You will not regret choosing me. Chinedu nodded and replied, I truly hope so. As soon as Chinedu drove away, Ego Ego screamed with joy and ran into the house. She counted nothing. She did not even open the envelope to check. She only felt the thickness and believed she had struck gold. So she rushed to the bar immediately, and the moment she entered, the bar owner shouted, "Everybody return to your seats. Ego has come again." Music started instantly. Drums beat fast, bottles opened, and the whole village started dancing as if heaven had dropped food. Ego ordered everything on the menu: 6 goats for pepper soup, 15 trays of jollof rice, cartons of malt and coke, grilled fish, pounded yam and egusi soup, 5 crates of beer for the men, biscuits and sweets for children. In no time, food covered every table like a festival. People danced violently and the musicians sang, "Ego Yibo, Destiny Eater, the Queen of Celebration." Ego climbed a chair and shouted proudly, "If you want to marry well, marry a woman who knows how to enjoy life. I am not desperate. My king has arrived." Everyone cheered her louder. And then, at the peak of celebration, when the food was almost finished and people were packing leftovers into nylon bags, Ego finally decided to open the envelope for the first time so she could give the bar owner his payments. She tore it open dramatically and looked inside. Then she froze. Inside were cut pieces of paper. No money, not even one note, just paper. She blinked. She blinked again. She shook the envelope like someone trying to resurrect a miracle. But nothing changed. She screamed so loudly that even the dogs eating bones jumped. Her legs shook. Her eyes went blurry and she fainted straight to the floor like a sack of yam. People screamed, "Hey, Ego has fallen, oh!" The bar owner shouted in horror, "Where is my money? Who will pay for the food?" Someone ran to call Chinedu, but he had already driven away. When Mama Josephine arrived, she fell to the floor and cried with both hands on her head, my daughter, stand up!" Papa Uzo pressed his chest, muttering, "I warned her, God, why me?" The DJ even stopped the music and announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, the music has ended. Please return the food you have not eaten." Chaos exploded immediately. Women dropped their plates and disappeared. Men pretended not to hear anything, while the children ran off like goats escaping slaughter. The bar owner held his head, shouting, "Somebody will pay me today, oh! Nobody will leave this place with 1 grain of rice." When Ego finally opened her eyes, she found herself lying on a bench outside, surrounded by angry faces. Her mouth was dry and her pride was scattered into ashes. The bar owner stood in front of her holding the giant's bill. "Ego, pay me my money or you will wash plates in this bar for 1 month." Mama Josephine cried hysterically. "Please have mercy, she was deceived." But Ego, who was still shaking with humiliation and fear, suddenly sat up and said courageously, "I will not run. I will pay. I am not a thief." She stood up and wiped her tears. Then she turned to the villagers and spoke. "If anyone here has any work I can do, I am ready. I will clean houses, cook, wash clothes, farm, anything for a token. I will repay every kobo." The village fell silent. People looked at her in shock because, for the first time, Ego spoke with humility. The bar owner crossed his arms and said slowly, "Then you will walk, starting tomorrow morning." Ego nodded strongly, refusing to cry again. And that was how the beautiful queen of bride price eating became a cleaner and helper in the village, working to repay a debt she created with her own pride. She woke up every morning before sunrise, sweeping, washing dishes, fetching water, cleaning compounds and serving people without shame, because she had no choice and because responsibility is harder than stone. Little by little, she walked off the debts, but something else started happening. For the first time in her life, people saw Ego differently, not as a proud beauty, but as a humbled soul trying hard to correct her mistake. Even the children stopped mocking her and began greeting her respectfully. People now talked differently about her, Ego has changed. It seems she has learned her lesson. Humility looks good on her. Even Aunty Nwakego, the village broadcaster who always added extra pepper to gossip, now spoke calmly whenever Ego passed because there was something about suffering that makes even loud mouths quiet. One evening, after a long day of washing plates until her fingers wrinkled like old yam, Papa Uzo sat beside her on the doorstep. He spoke gently to her. "My daughter, I am proud of you." Ego looked up slowly in shock because she expected anger or disappointment. "Proud? After everything I caused?" Papa Uzo smiled sadly. "It is easy to be good when life is sweet, but true character shows when life embarrasses you. Many people would have run away after such shame, yet you stayed. You cleaned your mess. That is strength." Ego started crying like someone confessing their sin. "Papa, I was foolish. I thought money and food was everything. I thought bride price would make me feel important. I did not know that pride can destroy a blessing." He placed his hand on her shoulder. "Now you know, and knowing is better than pretending." A few days later, while Ego was scrubbing the floor of the community hall on her knees, a male voice said behind her, "Ego." She turned slowly and her breath ceased in her throat because standing at the doorway was Obinna, looking calm and neat as always. She quickly stood up but could not raise her head. Shame crawled across her skin like hot pepper. "Obinna, I am sorry. I am truly sorry." Obinna looked at her from head to toe and shook his head in sympathy. "I heard everything that happened." Ego blinked fast to stop herself from crying because she did not want tears to wash her remaining dignity away. "I deserved the humiliation. I ignored you. I misused your gifts. I behaved like someone who lost wisdom." Obinna sighed sadly. "Ego, I was hurt, not because of the money, but because I thought you cared for my heart." Ego touched her chest and spoke with a trembling voice. "I did, but I was blinded by greed. I was afraid of suffering. I thought money meant security, but I see now that character is more important than envelopes." Obinna asked, "So, what will you do now?" Ego whispered, "I'll start again. I'll build myself back. And if love ever comes again, I will not swallow it like fufu." Obinna burst into laughter unexpectedly and shook his head. "You are still funny, even in shame." Ego smiled. A week later, Chief Okorie called a public gathering in the village square to settle the matter officially. Everybody came and Chief Okorie stood up and said loudly, "My people, Ego has paid her debts through hard work. She did not run or hide. She humbled herself. And for this reason, we must put an end to the shame and close the matter." The villagers murmured in agreement. Chinedu's uncle then stood up and said, "Chinedu's actions were harsh, but he only wanted to teach her a lesson, and the lesson has been learned. Let peace return." Then he handed Ego a wrapped package. It contained a book titled Wisdom and Humility and a big envelope of real money for her to clear the remaining debts and start something new. The crowd clapped loudly. Then Obinna stood up and said, "I came today not to remind Ego of the past, but to ask a question." People leaned forward like goats smelling fresh cassava. Obinna turned to Ego and said, "Ego Ibo, now that you know the value of character, will you allow me to walk beside you as a friend? Not necessarily as a husband today, not proposal, just friendship. Let us rebuild slowly and see where destiny leads us." The crowd froze. Everyone waited for another dramatic fainting incident. But Ego took a deep breath, placed her hand over her heart and replied with the sincerity that sounded like music, "Obinna, I will not rush, I will not demand, and I will not pretend. Yes, let us start again, slowly, humbly, and wisely. The villagers applauded loudly, and Tinwakego shouted, "Finally! She ate shame and digested wisdom." Everyone laughed until tears came out, and from that day, Ego and Obinna became close friends without pressure, without envelopes, and without feasts. Months later, when they eventually got married, Ego did not throw a wild feast, and she made sure no one ate in excess that day. As she said, "Let food nourish the body, not destroy the future." And the entire village nodded in approval, because the woman who once swallowed the future had now learned how to protect it, and her stomach never misbehaved again. Thank you for watching the story. Kindly share your thoughts about the story with me in the comment section. What lesson did you learn from the story? Kindly share the story out with your loved ones and give the story a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel if you've not done so by now. Until I bring another story your way. Bye!